Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Goffstown School Board meeting. I call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. If you could rise and say the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so right now we have on the phone Janelle O'Brien. If you can just say here and if you're alone or not. Here alone. Thank you, Janelle. And no one else, right? We're still waiting for Dan.
That's right.
And Terry.
Only Janelle right now.
Okay. So I'll open for public comment. Don't see any. So we can start in on our budget workshop.
Okay, Mr. Gross, I believe we left off at Maple Ave.
We did, but
Or Bartlett.
No,
We did.
we finished Bartlett.
We finished Bartlett, so
Yeah, we're
we're
on
just at the
Maple.
beginning
But we
of
have
Maple
to,
Ave.
we kind of have to go back and do a little bit of housekeeping. So, I sent everybody a piece of, Ellen, did everybody get this? The paper that I gave? Did you hand that out?
The one you emailed today?
Yeah,
I have it on my email.
the one that I gave you this afternoon. Well, long story short, these are the changes that we've made so far. And so what I did is I went in and I adjusted the Primex property insurance as well as the stipends for teachers that gave us their notice since we formulated the budget. There are two more. One of them is the SAU assessment. So based upon actions taken by the SAU board.
Thank you.
The past Thursday. In terms of, in non-public, you took actions on contracts.
Right.
The other thing that we learned is that we have the SAU, it fluctuates when we have people changing health plans. So the assistant superintendent position is going to more than likely require a family insurance plan, whereas it does not have one right now. And we were informed today that one of our employees who took an opt-out, they had a life event change, and now they're going to be taking the insurance. So with that, there's going to be an increase to the SAU portion of $33,438, which almost the majority of that is health insurance and some of those contractual things that you talked about in non-public. So the other one that I mentioned to you, you asked me about the stipend for the secretary who takes your notes at these meetings. I did a little bit of digging. The last time that stipend was changed was in 2009. So it's been almost 12 years.
Wow.
Yep. So in 2009, in actually January 15th, 2009, it was at $150, which it currently is, so it has not changed at all. It is my recommendation that we go to $225. So for budgetary purposes, I did look back, and we're going to need about another $500 to make that fit into the budget. So there was some room in the budget to absorb that increase, but not all of it. So I would recommend another $500.
Do we need a motion for that?
So
Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, if there are any questions, I'll respond to them. If not, then I'll frame it, Ellen, so that you can then motion it.
Okay.
Any questions from Janelle? Dan's on the
Jenny?
line, and so is Terry.
Oh, all right. So we just note the time that they're both on at 6:04. Hi, Dan. Hi, Terry.
Hey, actually, 6:03. I was on at 6:03.
All right, Dan. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to be specific here for the minutes. So for line 10-000-2321-00-312, which is SAU Management Services, it will be an increase to the default budget of $33,438. And for line 10-000-2321-00124, an increase in the new column of $500 for the increased secretary stipend.
All right, so that's your motion, or that's what you want the motion to say?
That's what my request would be. I would need a motion to
All
that
right.
effect.
And this is in the Goffstown budget.
Goffstown budget.
So moved.
All right, so I have a motion by Ellen, do I have a second? By
Yes.
Ginny, do you have a question too?
I was just wondering, I know you had told us what the background of what that job entails. I wonder if it would be helpful to say that here, like the amount of work that
So the
really is.
secretary who takes the notes for any school board meeting, not only do they attend the meeting, but then they're responsible for typing up the minutes. Also, if there are any adjustments that are made, so if board members or anyone wants it amended, they have to deal with that. They also deal with non-public minutes and making sure those are sealed properly. It's quite a bit of work, and typically, for every 1 hour of a meeting, you've got about 2 more hours on the back end, actually typing them up and dealing with all of the administration. So for a 1 hour physical meeting, you're looking at about 3 hours of work. 3 hour meeting, 9 hours of work, you can do the math there, so that's.
And our meetings lately have been going like 5 hours or 6 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
So mine is simply budgetary.
Yeah.
This is all this is. You're
Right.
gonna have to do that action at another point.
Right, I just thought
Right.
because we're
Yep.
increasing it, it would be good to.
That'll be
Yeah,
an
no, it's
agenda
good.
item
Yeah,
for another meeting.
have
All
it.
right, so, we have a motion, we have a second. Do you want to fill in Jared real quick with what the motion was on?
Jared, the motion, based upon actions of the SAU board in terms of what was done in non-public with contracts, and also the fact that we were today informed that one of our employees who was taking an opt-out is now taking a 2-person health plan, and the assistant superintendent job will more than likely require a family health plan where the incumbent does not possess one. We had to make adjustments to the SAU budget, which would require an increase of $33,438. The other one was an increase of $500 for the increase for the secretary stipend that we talked about last meeting.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Ellen.
That SCU, the 33,438, was an SAU matter. Why are we voting on it?
Because it impacts, you pay 78%
Okay.
of that. So when that goes up, your apportionment goes up.
But it was, why do we have to vote on it? It was voted on at the SAU, so it's a
Because
done
it's
deal.
part of your budget, it's part of your default.
So that's the change in, okay, our
Yeah.
default as a result,
Yeah.
okay.
Right. All right, so I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion before I do roll call? Go ahead,
For the
Caleb.
second
Yeah.
line, I believe you said 10,000. You say 23210?
It should be 2311.
11.
11.
Yeah,
You said 21 for both of them, so I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify.
yeah, it should be 11.
What particular line item or reference number are we talking about?
181, thank you.
Which reference numbers,
Hold on.
Scott?
182, and
Yeah, 182 for the secretary.
then the management services is
Management.
225.
And what would be the increase for line 2, or reference line 225?
Was that the 33,000, Scott? 438?
1 sec. For line 222, 225, it needs to go to, the line itself needs to go to 1,937,692, which represents an increase of 33,438.
Right.
And then would this be default or new?
Default.
And then the secretary line, the 182, they're increasing it by 500.
And that's a new column.
That's a new column. All right, so we set for me to do roll call for a vote? Do you have any questions for?
So just the
for Scott?
500, which is for the note-taking, we're saying is 182 under the school board stipends, not 183 under regular stipends.
If you want me to break that out and put Denise, the secretaries in one, and the school board in another, I can do that. I'll just, the bottom line number will still be the same, but I can separate that into two different lines. I think you talked a little bit about, somebody talked about that last time.
Yeah, so whatever the motion was and seconded.
Well, it's just motioning to accept the money.
Just the
If you
cost.
want to switch the lines, we can do that after. Okay. All right, so, any other questions before I do roll call? All right, Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Janelle? Ellen?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Heather, yes, so motion passed. Jared, did you want to make a motion to move the lines, the secretary into a different line?
Yeah, I think if we could split out the secretary stipend from line 182, which is the school board stipends, into 183, I think that'll be a lot cleaner, at least for
Yeah.
our secondary committee, for the budget
Absolutely.
committee to look at.
Yep.
Does that work,
That
Scott?
works.
Do you need a motion for that? No, okay. All right, so is there anything else that we need to finish up with Maple before we go on to Bartlett? Or not Bartlett. Finish up Bartlett before we go to Maple.
Which document are we using, please, the actuals or the notes?
We're using the actuals.
And we left off on page 24, Ellen.
24, reference number 532 to 552. All right, so is everybody ready? All right, so we're in Maple Avenue, page 24, reference number 532 to 552. Anybody see anything or questions on that page? This is mostly regular education. Anybody see anything before we move on to the next page? All right, so we can move on to page 25, reference 553 to 575. Good. All right, next page, 26, reference number 576 to 598. This is special education.
This one's almost entirely salary, that page is
Yeah.
entirely salaries and benefits.
Dan, do you have something?
No, I just put it on mute because I was coughing. Sorry.
Oh, okay, no, that's okay. All right, so we can move to page 27, reference number 599 to 621. This is still special ed and guidance, teachers, tuition. right, we can move on to the next page if everybody's good. Page 28, reference number 622 to 644. All right, page 29, 645, reference number to 667. This is still a lot of salaries and benefits and stuff.
Mr. Chair, for
Yeah, go
reference
ahead.
line 651, how many speech pathologists do we have at Maple? Now, is it one full-time or a little bit more than one full-time?
It's a little more than one full-time. There's a part-time position that's also shared with Glen Lake.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so we'll move on to page 30, reference 668 to 690. This is getting into media stuff.
This is all still Maple?
Yes, all Maple Avenue. Yep, location 102 is all Maple. All right, so, yep, go ahead, Jared.
Just to remind me, because I'm looking at the teacher retirement on reference line 675. Didn't we put retirement all at the, why is it still at the school level?
No, that's, you're talking about retirement stipends or district. So at the end of their career, when they retire, if let's say they put in 30 years, they get a stipend for their contract. The teacher retirement that you're seeing is what goes to the New Hampshire Retirement Associate,
Thank you.
and you'll see that throughout the budget.
Anyone else before we go on? All right, page 31, reference number 691 to 713. This is administration. Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
Reference line 695, we had a shakeup of the assistant principal that was split between Glen Lake, Maple, and now she has moved towards the middle school.
Right.
Glen
So-
Lake and Bartlett.
Bartlett, thank you. So this monies that's listed under the new column was for the person that was previously in that position that has moved to the middle school.
No,
Scott, can you explain?
I can. As we mentioned last week, what you're seeing in the new column is a redistribution of what was in that salary pool. In
That
this
we approved
particular
last year.
case.
Last year.
So if you recall, every year we do benchmarking on individuals. This was the benchmarking change for that assistant principal for that
That's also a
position.
new role for that individual. So there was we had changes within the school. Last year, we had an interim person in that who went back to the previous role, so there was movement as well.
Assistant principal at Maple?
No, I'm sorry,
we
we were in Mountain View, I was right with
Yeah.
you, Jared.
No, we're not there yet.
No, we're not
This
there
is
yet.
Maple Avenue, and you have one in your budget this year where we're making, we did benchmarking, and it was pretty egregious where that person's compensation was. So we made an adjustment to this individual's salary to make it within the 50th percentile. That's what you're seeing here.
And that person stayed at Maple. I
Correct.
was thinking of the Bartlett Glen
Yeah.
Lake school.
I was too.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
All right, is everybody good on page 31? Move to page 32, reference number 714 to 736. This is more salaries and benefits. And building operations at the bottom.
Hi, Janelle.
Go ahead, Janelle.
Just a quick question on.
Just speak up a little bit, okay, because I can't hear you.
Sure, reference number 732.
732,
Increase for 2,000. I'm just wondering for the other professional services, like a lawyer or?
No,
That's building and
that was-
grounds.
That was water. So it was explained during the, maybe, I'm not sure if you had that presentation, but I think it was Lisa who explained it. In the past, if you've ever tried the water that comes out of the tap, not the greatest, at the SAU or at Maple. And in previous years, for many, many years, the PFT over there would pay for bottles, the big 5-gallon water jugs. They would pay for that service for the teachers. And they're no longer doing that. So this $2,000 represents getting, water for, bubbler type water delivered to the school, because the water, frankly, does not taste all that great. We did look at, like, Randy and Dawn priced out a unit that would be filtration as well as, bubbler type of thing. And I believe it was like $4,500 for the unit and the installation on that. So at this point, we were just going to continue with the water service.
Thanks, Scott. Janelle, is that good?
Yeah, I was just curious, do the kids have access to that, or is that?
No,
just teachers?
no.
Just teachers?
Yep. It's in the teacher. It's in the teacher's break room.
Gross water?
Can't hear you?
Do the kids have to drink gross water then?
We have bubblers that
They fill
I believe have
water
a
bottles, don't
filter
they?
on them, but this would be getting yet another one
In the teacher's lounge.
in the teacher's lounge, yeah.
Right.
The water bubblers all have filtration
Yeah.
systems
Right.
built into them.
And be able to fill
Yes.
a
They
water
have the water
bottle.
bottles
Yes.
too.
So this is just the teacher's lounge.
So this is instead of drinking out of the faucet.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Janelle. Go ahead, Ellen.
Is this, would it be advisable to put on our mini CIP a system-wide filtration system for all the water used at the school? Is that something we should look into doing?
All of the water bubblers that the kids drink
Bubblers
from
do.
all have filtration systems in them.
Okay.
So I think,
So you-
Scott, the judgment was instead of adding an additional
Bubbler.
unit
Right.
and putting it in the teacher's room,
Right.
so to speak, that this was.
By the water, okay.
Thank you, Alan. Anyone else on page 32? All right, moving on to page 33, reference number 737 to 759. This is still building maintenance and public school infrastructure structure. All right, if everybody's good, we'll go on to the next page, 34. The top is just one column. No, yeah, just the total for Maple, and then we can start on Glen Lake, if everybody's good with Maple. So Glen Lake starts at reference number 761 to 782.
What's the rental equipment?
Go ahead. What's the rental equipment for where, what number are you on?
776.
776, equipment rental, 14,000. That's regular ed. Scott, do you know?
Yeah, hold on.
Is that the storage unit, Scott?
No. Hold on. This was the iPad lease predominantly, and a slight increase in the managed print side of things, but that's what that one was. It was a laptop lease that they have, not laptop lease, iPad lease. It was the iPad lease and a slight increase in copier maintenance and managed print that accounted for that 5,000. So they had very old iPads
So
that they had to,
New ones.
they got new ones, yeah.
More expensive.
And that was one of those things where we had to do it.
And this is at Glen Lake now.
Yeah.
Anyone else questions on this page?
So candidly, at least it's already been signed, just so you know.
Okay. All right, so page 35, reference number 783 to 805. Questions, we can move on to page 36, reference number 806 to 828. All right, any questions? All right, so we'll move to page 37, reference number 829 to 851. And this is still Glen Lake. All right, moving on to page 38. Reference number 852 to 874. All right, we can move to page 39. Reference number 875 to 897. We can move to page 40, reference number 898 to 920. Still Glen Lake. If everybody's good, we can move to page 41, which is reference number 921 to 943. And that basically finishes up Glen Lake.
Looking at line 924 for our maintenance, it looks like we've consistently underspent what our base salary is, and then we have a new. Could you just articulate why we had a spike in our base for maintenance this year? This is line, I'm sorry, 924. I think
Yeah.
I said it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so, on the notes section, we typically do fire alarm maintenance, fire extinguisher maintenance, sprinkler inspections, HV controls maintenance, you name it, all the way down. There is gonna be a state mandated cistern inspection in that 431 line, and that's gonna be about $12,000 to do that inspection. So, remember we did something similar at Mountain View, we had to do the inspection, and then unfortunately we had to do repairs there. This one is a relatively, the tank is only, 10 years old, but it still needs inspection.
So why would that be under the base versus the new?
Because it's mandated by the state. You have to do it. It's a state mandated inspection.
So you included that in default?
I did. Remember I talked about that when I did the default page? I felt that, my opinion, it was because the state mandates testing of cisterns and tanks, et cetera, then I included it. It's not something you have a choice in doing. You have to do it.
Every year.
No.
And the
Every
$200
time.
increase there, is
The
that
two-
just for other?
The $200 increase was just, it was just other, I'm not sure what it was. It might have been
This is roof inspection.
roof inspection, right there. Yeah.
Thank you, Caleb.
He's on it today.
Yes,
He's on everything.
What are you doing Thursday night?
right. So the cistern has to get inspected
Every 10 years.
Every 10 years, so we're at the 10, so this will come out.
Yeah, it comes out
Next
next
year.
year. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions with Glen Lake finishing up? All right, so the next page is page 42. Mountain View starts at reference 945 and ends at 966 on that page.
May I ask a general question?
Oh, sure, go ahead, Amanda.
So for teacher salaries, I know that's a separate union negotiation. How does that get voted on or tied in? Because this is like your default amount without a contract, correct?
So because we
Right.
don't have a voter-approved contract, there are no raises for the entire GEA collective bargaining unit in this budget.
So what will that look like once the negotiations are done?
So several things have to happen. When negotiations are finished, the school board has to ratify the proposed contract. The collective bargaining unit has to do the same. They too have to ratify the contract. That contract would then be presented to the public at deliberative session and then would go, and no changes can be made. So there are some warrant articles that participants at the deliberative session cannot change. A negotiated contract is one of them. So then that contract would go to the voters in March, and if the voters approve the contract, then next year, when we're sitting here, for the subsequent year, raises would be built in, and it would become part of the default. But when there is no approved contract for the next year, there are no raises in the budget.
Makes sense, thank you.
All right, thanks, Amanda.
Heather?
Yes, go ahead, Ellen.
On page 42, line 961, other professional services.
Yep.
What's happened there that it's down to nothing?
Because that was the school resource officer at Mountain View.
Right, that
if you
we
recall,
took-
was switched to a
Yep,
district line.
got it. I'm not looking at the notes thing. I'm
Oh, it's okay.
looking-
Yeah.
All right, so is everybody good on that page? We can move on to page 43, reference number 967 to 989.
Oh, for me?
Yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
973. Why are we adding
Nine
That was the,
73.
remember the Cengage Math of Big Ideas, that this was for consumables for that program. They need to replenish their supply for those consumables. And they don't do that every year. They
No.
just do it when they need to.
Well, when we have purchased some of the curriculum products, we have gotten those for
For
free.
free, yeah.
So, but then, after a couple years,
Yep.
the consumables are gone, and we need to replace them.
All right, if everybody's good on that page, we'll go to page 44, reference number 990 to 1012. And this is still Mountain View. Yes, go ahead, Ellen.
Let's see, what number? 1033?
10, what number? Reference
33?
number?
Am I on the right, page 45?
You're a page ahead
We're
of us.
not there yet. We
Oh,
can,
wait.
if everybody's go with 44, we can move to page 45, which is reference number 1013 to 1035. Go ahead, Ellen, 1033?
1033, we have books and print material, we all know what that is. The last actual was 3,700.
I think hence the reduction. So the 1,500 in parentheses is a
Well, that brings it
reduction.
down to 2,500.
This is what we ask our principals to review their budget, what their needs are, and Wendy and her staff felt that that was an area where they would be fine. So for next year,
Okay.
that's what they thought.
And this is a reduction in sped, since the
Yeah.
1,200 line.
Right.
Right.
Yep. And for books, and printed media.
Sped doesn't need all that much, right? That's what it's saying.
Or they have it, they have
Right, or
enough.
they just simply don't need it. Also, keep in mind too that unlike regular education, special education has more opportunities for grants, IDEA. There's other things that they can dip into for certain things that regular ed can't.
All right, if everybody's good, we'll move on to page 46, reference number 1036 to 1058. This is still Mountain View. Go ahead, Jared.
It's gonna come up, so I'm gonna ask. Reference line 1043.
1043,
It
maintenance.
looks like our maintenance line has been consistently underspent, so why would we hold it at 10,000? Is it in the notes of what would be spending that 10,000 on for this line item?
In this particular case, we're going to be irrigating these fields, so we're going to try to do a much better job in terms of the seeding. A lot of times, what happened in the past, Jared, is that we were kind of wasting some effort here in terms of when you reseed or you fertilize it, you're not watering, or you get it, you're not doing the best that you can with it. But now we're going to have an irrigation system similar to the high school where we do split seeding, much more split seeding. We do more fertilization, that type of thing. So we have had an underspend there, but I think we're gonna use our budget going forward in that
Field
area.
maintenance.
Field maintenance. for
Yeah,
fields.
so water that we would get charged, does that fall under
That
the maintenance
doesn't,
line?
that doesn't fall under that one. I think it falls under another line.
So what difference are we doing for maintenance for
What?
athletics at Mountain View?
So you're saying more aggressive
More,
field
yeah,
maintenance,
for our fields.
slice seeding, fertilizing,
Gotcha.
treatments. So you're saying we're going to be increasing those services, even though there's no corresponding increase in that budget line, but it looks like last year we only spent half of that.
Right. That's
Getting
true.
them back up to
Because we
speed.
can now water it.
Because you're,
That's
if
not
Right.
you
what
can't
we're
water it,
doing.
then why are you gonna
Why
like
are you
go
gonna
crazy
do
with
all that
fertilizing
stuff?
and seeding if the seed's not gonna take because you don't have
Water.
Right.
So
Now we have the water.
that's the intent. It's a good question. That is the intent.
Okay. Anyone else on this page? All right, we can move to page 47, reference number 1059 to 1081. All right, move to page 48, reference number 1082 to 1104, still Mountain View.
So this is the first one of these that I've seen, so I might as well point it out.
Okay.
Line 1091.
Oh,
The function 2150 is speech. So other support salaries, this is a speech assistant. So our model includes speech and language pathologists, as well as speech assistants. Here is a speech assistant.
moving to page 49, reference 1105 to 1127. All right, we can move to page 50, reference 1128 to 1150. Go ahead, Jared.
How many assistant principals do we have that fall under line 117.2?
We
which
only
is-
have one, but that's a little misleading because there are other individuals in that line. So that would also include the curriculum coordinator and the dean of students.
So I just want to
So
make
there
sure.
are three.
Yeah.
Three individuals in that line.
Reference line 1134, that contains 3 individuals,
Right,
not just
Scott?
the
Yeah.
one.
The three of them, because the special ed administrator, the building special ed facilitator would be in that 1,200 line. There's a line where her salary is in the 1,200 function. But that's 3, we don't have 3 assistant principals, but that's
Right.
3 individuals.
So it's the dean of students
The curriculum coordinator
and then the
and the
assistant
assistant principal.
And we have a permanent assistant principal there
We do.
at this point.
Yep.
Any other questions on page 50? All right, we'll move to page 51, reference number 1151 to 1173. All right, I'll move to page 52, reference number 1174 to 1196.
So
Go ahead,
just
Jared.
to complete it, so reference line 1185, that 4,600, I take it for water and sewer, that's an increase for our water usage we're projecting?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and then page 53, 1197 to 1215 finishes off Mountain View before we get into the high school.
We're not expecting electricity costs to go up for Mountain View?
Not, I'm hedging myself on that one because.
1194,
Correct.
reference
1194.
number?
This is a consumption, this is reflected in the consumption
Yeah.
though, right, Scott? So the other schools that there was, we just saw, was it Glen Lake had a $10,000 increase?
Yeah, Glen Lake, the reason for the Glen Lake
Is the
one, Brian,
modular.
is that,
Right.
is the modular, which I told you, I thought that it was propane and electricity, but it's not, it's all electricity, so that's my bad. But all these other ones, I'm kind of hedging myself on electricity. Could electricity rates go up? Yeah, they could, but I'm just looking at what we're paying. And even on the propane, it's a tough one, because, you know, we, as you all know, we were cracking windows, and we'll probably crack windows again this year, so it's, that we need to get the airflow
Right.
in the building. So it's kind of, I based it, our budget, based upon last year's actuals.
But you did not assume
I
an
didn't
increase
assume-
in the per kilowatt hour
I did not.
cost.
And we're not expecting an increase in electric prices?
I'm not at this point,
Okay.
but, and it's one of those things, I'm just, like I said, I don't think it'll be a break the bank type situation, certainly not like propane was. If I thought that we were gonna see $100,000 increase in electricity, I would have done something about it, so we would just absorb it and then deal with it next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jared. Go ahead, Ellen.
Are we on 53?
Yes, just finishing up Mountain View, so up to 1215.
I'll wait till you go to the next one.
If everybody's done with Mountain View, we'll go right into the high school, which finishes at page 1216 to 1219. Go ahead, Ellen.
line 1218.
1218?
Yeah, looking at the actual of 42.5, this year's budget 63,000, and it's coming down to 23. What's the cause of that significant reduction?
Because we repurpose, hold on a second, give me a sec.
That's likely the in-school suspension teacher.
Yeah.
That there was a change made, that position is being repurposed into IT support. So there's a reduction based on that position.
Do we still, but we don't have that position anymore, or we do, but it's not costing us anything?
We're proposing that position doesn't exist next year.
The in-school suspension?
Correct.
And who does that? Nobody?
So
Or-
we haven't really had a traditional in-school suspension program for many years.
Oh, okay.
So we're not running like an in-school suspension type room.
Okay, makes sense.
What do we do with, I know it's a program question, not a budget question, so go to CD, what are we doing with the in-school suspension kids?
So instead of having multiple in-school suspension kids together in one room, they're being dispersed around the school if we have in-school suspension, so there
In
might
the
be.
classrooms?
Either in classrooms or in the office or in another location.
I
So
see.
instead of having a group
Yep.
together, it's kind of just a different model.
Okay.
Thank you, Ellen. Any other questions on page 53? All right, moving to page 54, reference number 1220 to 1242. This is the high school. All right, I'll move to page 55, reference 1243 to 1265. Yes, go ahead, Ellen.
1257?
1257.
Yeah, what happened with the information access fees?
So we moved several of those fees into the district line, the
We no
3960
longer
reduction.
use Success Maker software. We're not using that software anymore, so we got rid of it. And we did move software from some schools to a district line to get better discounts, but in this particular one, we don't use that software anymore.
So it's not using it, okay.
Yep.
For reference line 1255, books and printed material, just looking at the past two actuals, they've been significantly under our budget. Is this due to COVID years?
Yeah.
And we expect that to be restored?
Yeah, because, yes, that's exactly the point. So we repurposed some of those lines to deal with information access fees and all the licenses that we had to buy,
But we're expecting to be back to normal, so
Yes.
that those should be reverted back.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jared. Anyone else on page 55? Okay, we'll go to page 56, reference number 1266 to 1288. If we're good, we can move to page 57, reference number 1289 to 1311. Go ahead, Ellen.
1311,
1311?
the actuals are much lower than what we're being proposed here, so what's changed in there, other professional services?
Hold on. 1410, 339. Okay,
That's
this is,
co-curricular.
yeah, so in this one, if you recall, we talked about trying to get performing arts under the budget. And this includes musicians for school productions. That's the new portion. And as well as performing arts workshops, choreographer, costume designer. This is part of the effort to try to get performing arts within the budget. So that $2,500 new spending is for, we do have musicians, whether that's, whether it be percussionists or pianists, et cetera, who perform at these.
That we need to hire?
We need to hire them,
That we
yeah.
need to hire.
Students
But
don't
then
do
this
that.
is also your choreography.
Choreography.
Your costuming.
Okay.
Makes sense. Thank you, Ellen.
Same question for general supplies, which is reference number 1301.
1301, okay.
I see that we have a traditional underspend there for our budget. And I know that this is a 1,200 line, so that's why I'm just asking.
Right, special ed.
Yep, that looks like a line I probably would have wanted to go down. And you'll see this throughout the budget. We increase lines, we decrease lines based on actuals. This one looks like they're not spending the full amount.
If it's special ed, is it equipment that they need for next
It,
year?
it depends. I mean, if they need it, then they should be buying it.
The difficult piece, I think that, the hard part is over the last couple of years, ordinarily I would say, oh, feel free to do what you want, but they have been hesitant in spending, and or they didn't have a need. Let's say when school closed in March of 2020, maybe they didn't have a need, or they put things off, and then we were in hybrid, so they're not thinking about even sometimes replacing things or getting supplies, just trying to make do with what they have. So that's your call as to what you want to do. This is one where it looks like it is historical underspend.
So I guess I'm looking at the notes too, and, they have life skill supplies at $1,590.
Yeah,
The
so-
SY supplies at $1,000.
So give you a good example, so this year, I had just last week, I had to increase the life skill supplies. This is like food, because of the inflation at the supermarket. I had to bump up their purchase order because they didn't have enough money. So on this particular one, yeah, again, your call, but I can tell you that they'll spend more money this year, because I know that they are, because I just bumped their PO up at Hannaford's because they can't buy as much food as they with what they had. But again,
So this
your
could
call.
be, Scott, that just last year, there just could have been less.
Right.
Stuff going on.
Well, and historically, for our life skills kids, we like to get students out into the community. We didn't
haven't
do
done
that
any
last
of that.
year. So last year, we didn't do any kind of community-based field trips
Right.
of any kind. And actually, I'm not sure we've restarted those. I know
the
that I
other-
haven't been asked to
Right,
restart.
and then the other thing that they do is the life skills students, they buy like flowers, and they make wreaths, and they didn't do a lot of that because
Right.
of.
They do a
COVID.
fundraiser
Yeah.
where they do beautiful Thanksgiving
Yeah.
kind of bouquets.
Arrangement.
Arrangements,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
Centerpieces.
Centerpiece,
Yeah,
there you
right.
go. That's what it is.
Yeah,
So you can work on your tablescape,
Right,
is what they call it.
yeah.
really nice too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're well done.
And with prices going up, they probably need this little bump.
Yeah, they just might not have been engaging in a lot of those kinds of things.
Right.
But I think it's worth watching. So I think next year,
Absolutely.
if they don't spend it this year,
Then it goes down.
then it should be reduced.
All right, so we good with 57? All right, page 58, reference number 1312 to 1334. This is co-curricular and athletics.
So
And
you'll note
adult
on
ed.
that,
13, 14?
yeah,
What number, Ellen?
13, 14,
Yeah,
that's
just-
again, that same
Yep.
thing where we put in the royalties for the
Oh, for the-
performances,
for the
all of that.
performances.
Yep.
Yep, 14, yeah, that's co-curricular.
Equipment rental?
What number, 1318?
That's ice time.
That probably went up.
Yep. So that line That's where ice time comes out of for the hockey program. And then Scott, I'm assuming line 1321.
I was just gonna ask
Yeah.
about that.
That's gotta be Huddle? Is
Yes,
that the
that is
video
Huddle.
platform?
Yep.
So that's a different information access than the other one.
And it's gonna be important to point out to the budget committee that there were some reductions made to support that addition
Right.
in
So
particular.
Yeah, so we cut, you'll see that,
Yep, I'm just-
replacement equipment was cut. We also
Yeah,
cut.
1325.
In half of the student agenda books cost, that was cut, postage was cut. So we did try to.
I just wanna make sure that Jared is
Yeah.
primed
Yeah.
up, that increase.
Did you know what number 1321,
That there
Jared?
are also corresponding decreases to help support that addition to the budget.
And just remind me, if we could, what athletics are currently using that system that was paid for by
It's-
the fundraisers?
It's every team.
Every team.
And performing arts.
No, who's currently using it?
They're all
Every
using,
team.
every athletic team is using it.
Maybe, I don't think cross-country, are they?
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
even
everybody-
cross-country, then
Yeah, we
I
film-
would
we
think
film
that
people
cross-country would have been
running
the
at
only
these,
one
and
that
then
I
we
would have
check
said
their
probably
form.
isn't, but if they are, they are.
It's awesome.
Yep.
That's good.
Well,
Different world now.
it's a different
Yeah.
world now, and so this seemed like something not that many years ago that was kind of a nice to have, and it's kind of quickly moved into, if you're gonna be in Division One, you need to be able to break down your games, you need to be able to use them instructionally, and to have a tool that you can use to do that, this platform. What we didn't anticipate was performing arts was quick, when they bought the license, performing arts was quick to say, we think we could use that. And so they use it for performances, they use it to record when they're, getting ready. So it's actually,
Yeah.
it's kind of permeated everything.
The, and the
Not
bigger-
using it at the middle school. We have no
The bigger
license
one-
at the middle school.
The bigger piece to this, and I think it also has to do with GTV, is that we did, for the last few years, we've done well over 100 games at Goffstown Television, which I'm a part of, as you know. And with Huddle, the number of kids that are getting exposure to different universities for scholarship opportunities is just, that's where so they can't visit every school. Like in the old days when there was no Huddle, there was no video, they'd have to send recruiters out to schools to watch games. Now they go and they watch the Huddle film, or they'll watch GTV, the archive there. And I know of at least a half a dozen players who have gotten scholarship offers to play based upon that video. And then the coach comes and offers them. So that's a biggie, and it makes you feel pretty good that, hey, games that I did, another coach, came and saw that, and a kid got a scholarship based upon the film. It's pretty cool.
Let me ask this question a different way. If everybody already has it, why are we increasing our budget now for it?
No one had it before. Only football had it before.
That was my question. So
And
all athletics are using it, or only football?
All athletics are using it. Before, only football had it, and the Booster Club, I believe, was paying for it.
The Booster Club was paying for it. So so who's paying for it now?
No one is paying for it now. We are paying for it because during COVID, this was the one thing that we paid for because we had no choice.
So we paid for it, but we haven't added it. We're adding it to the next
Correct.
budget. So right now, we would anticipate that line is either going to be overspent, or we'll have other things in that line that we
yeah.
don't.
Well, I'm looking at the 2021 actual, which is $15,000, and the 2021 budget was $3,000. So obviously we're over, but what I'm trying to understand is, we had our programs, the individual athletic programs were paying for the licenses, but we want to absorb that at the school board level, or the school level, so that everybody can use it, not just the athletics.
Right.
And that's what's causing the increase, is we're no longer having the fundraisers pay for it, the school's gonna pay for it.
Right.
Right.
But what it also sounds like is that purchase has already occurred.
And this is just the licensing for it.
This is the license
Yeah.
associated with using that for this whole school.
For everybody.
So during COVID, when kids couldn't get together, Huddle was a method in which you could videotape, you could record the games, and then remotely you can review the feedback. You don't have to be all in the same room in a locker room going over it. You can be at your own
Hey,
desktop.
Heather?
Yep, hang on. Are you done, Scott?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Dan, and then Shane had his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, for Jared and I, we can talk the same thing. We got two amounts. We got a budget, we got an actual. The actual for the 21 was way over budget. That's because we had huddle and we paid for it.
Right.
We now are gonna make the budget
Reflect.
what, to pay for the huddle. So that's how it flattens out.
Thank you, Dan.
I just wanted to say it out loud.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Go ahead, Shane.
Thank you. And the Huddle subscription, that's a price we have to pay every year, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And just to follow up on Brian, what Brian was saying, I don't know any D1 high school that's not using Huddle right now, so
Yeah.
it's worthwhile having.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, any other questions on page 58 before we move to page 59? Oh, go ahead, Ellen.
Line 1325.
1325.
Okay, the proposed budget is below the lowest actual, so what's happening there?
Replacement equipment.
Because the athletic director's looking to go on a longer replacement cycle for his uniforms in order to pay for huddle.
So this is one of the reductions
Yeah.
to help support the huddle.
He thinks it's
So
that- he thinks it's
Scott,
that
you
important.
listed about 3 of them. I just want to make sure Jared has those. You said it was the student agenda books, it was this line, and then I think there was a line on a previous page.
Well, I know we reduced postage.
Postage.
And there was, 431 maintenance, I know we cut that by 1,000.
Scott will have the
New
summary
equipment.
before we present to
Before
the
you
budget
go
committee, I'm sure.
Thursday.
Don't need to put him on the spot now.
Thank you, Jared.
All right.
Happy Monday Night Football to you, too.
Yes, so we're gonna move on to page 59, reference 1335 to 1357.
Function 1600 is one you will only see at the high school. This is the adult ed program.
Right. All right,
If I may ask, is adult ed still financially self-sustaining?
It is, but we also receive grant money. So you'll see here, under this function, there's some money in the budget, and we also do get an adult ed grant that helps the program. And they generate revenue.
are you still
Yeah,
on page
qu-
59?
I'm still on,
I-
59 or 60.
All right, we can go 60 now if everybody's ready. So page 60, 1358 to 1380. Go ahead, Jared.
1368. I'm just looking at this for a historical standpoint for other support salaries.
Yep.
You know, we're consistently spending 135, 145, 158. And now we're saying that we only need 75,000 for the default and 11,000 is in the new.
So this is the guidance department, and we've had a couple of changes in personnel.
Okay.
I don't know, Scott, if that's what
So lower
Yeah,
salary.
explains this.
This is,
Move database management to
Yes.
district line IT.
yeah. We have people that were here that were supporting, as Dan just said, supporting our database and database management that should be district employees. They don't just work for the high school, they were housed here, so that's
Okay.
why.
So there's someplace else in the budget?
Right.
Yes, they're in the district. Remember that district line went up like 300,000? We moved a lot of the ones that were, just because they're housed here does not necessarily mean that they just work exclusively for the high school.
Right.
Got it.
And then what's the $11,500 increase? I was trying to look in the notes, couldn't find it in a quick manner.
In the same line,
Yes, for other support salaries.
11,580.
So we dropped to 75,000.
So did we approve a raise for that amount?
Would this be the school counseling coordinator? So this is likely salary adjustment for that one individual as well.
So the follow-up line is, this is only for one individual now.
That's showing up in the new, because everyone else in that, so that, if that group, that line 1368, 2120, that is the,
Guidance.
is that the guidance
Yeah, that's
coordinator
guidance.
and the secretary? What else is in that line, Scott?
I'd have to pull up Kate's sheet. I don't.
All right,
don't
we're just
know.
looking to explain the $11,500 increase.
There, I remember that last year we had a couple of people where we did benchmarking. And I know Maple Avenue was one, and I think you're right. I think it was here.
Yeah,
We also added hours for that, or increased days.
we
for that
increased
work.
days.
Remember?
Yeah.
It wasn't just a raise, it was just we added days to their contract.
So let me ask this a different way. How many full-time employees are currently in this line?
Scott?
I'd have to look that up.
Is this potentially
I think-
one or
I
two?
believe it's two.
I think it's one or two, but I'd have to look it up.
I believe it's two, but I think that when Scott was saying that other positions were moved, there was also another position here that was a support position that was moved to the district line.
Right.
I believe this is 2 FTEs.
Looking under the notes, and Dan's correct, if people are on the notes page, it's on 76, the first two lines. Dan already said move database management to district line, and right above it says guidance coordinator. So this is a singular position,
That one salary.
and they had an increase potentially of $11,000
Yeah, because that was not
to bring them in
just-
line with.
Not just that, it was also added days, if you remember. Remember, this person normally did not work, they
the
only
summer.
worked like almost like a teacher contract, but a little bit more, and now I think they work like 220-day contract.
210 or- yeah,
Because they have
okay.
to work during the summer.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Jared. Go ahead, Shane.
I was just gonna say, it's probably an additional responsibilities, yeah.
Yeah. Ellen, did you have your hand up
I'm
too?
fine.
You're good? Everybody good on page 60? All right. 61, reference 1381 to 1403. All right, if everybody's good, we can move to page 62, reference number 1404 to 1426. All right, move into page 63, reference number 1427 to 1449. All right. We can move to page 64, reference number 1450 to 1472.
For line 1460, how many people does the assistant principal salary consume?
So that should
Curriculum
be the
coordinator,
assistant principal,
same thing.
dean of students, and the curriculum
Curriculum.
coordinator.
So
Same
again, three.
Three.
It's the same as Mountain View. And Scott, you've got a reduction in the supply line on 1452. There's one 3,000, and I know on the next page, there's another 5,000. I'm just trying to point those ones out that you had mentioned
For the huddle.
for the huddle.
Are you talking about the 1452?
1452, and then on page 65,
Yeah,
reference
there's two other
1488.
reductions.
So if we go to page 65, reference number 1473 to 1495, Brian's talking about line 1488.
And I think as Kim mentioned, we're still gonna offer agenda books to freshmen and sophomores. It'll just be the juniors
Right.
and seniors that won't automatically get one. There'll be some for them, but,
Right.
and, I don't know, maybe Caleb or speak to it. Not everybody
don't use
uses
them.
them, and,
No.
and,
They don't use
After we
them.
get them, I mean, half the kids probably just throw them in the recycle.
Yep.
Or they just give them
Don't
back.
say that.
Or they just give them back, you know, like teachers have sacks of them that they give out to kids who do want them. or
Right.
theirs.
So
So, yeah.
instead of it being the default that everybody gets them, we're gonna do it more of an opt-in
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
approach, that if you
Yeah,
want an
'cause a lot of
agenda
people
book,
have,
we've
their
got one
own
for you.
larger one that works for them.
Well, and a lot of kids are using their phones.
Right, it's all
So they're
online.
using the calendar, they're using, other tools.
Right. All right, so we'll move to page 66, reference number.
For just
oh,
one moment.
Yep, go back to 65.
Yeah, if we could. I was just
Sure.
looking at line, or reference number 1490, the general supplies.
Yep.
Kind of the same thing, we've consistently underspent. I couldn't remember what 2410 equated
2410's
to.
administration.
So if we've consistently underspent for general supplies, why are we keeping it level funded at this point? I know we're just talking about a couple $1,000s, but
Yep, that's been our practice. If they don't spend it, it goes down. If they overspend it, it goes up.
So, can we take this down to like 3,000?
Well, you spent 3722 last year.
so perhaps maybe just one more year, see where we are
And
and
then
where it
watch
lands.
it.
Yeah, it's hard, you can't,
Especially with, the whole COVID spanning 2 years.
Well, the other
is
thing
kinda
that this,
difficult.
this particular line also has for additional items for things like graduation, and so this is an administrative, this is a line out of the principal's office, so we didn't do a lot of the,
extra things that
Extra
you
yeah,
do.
stuff.
so a lot
year.
of the, special
Like the barbecue doesn't
celebrations
go in
and
this line,
ritual.
does it?
The barbecue actually comes out of a school board line, but
But if
that
we-
kind of thing.
But if you needed, right, if there was a need to do something, it would come out of this line.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to leave it?
We're gonna leave it and watch it for next
Yeah,
year.
and I'm comfortable that if lines aren't being spent, then they should
Right.
go down, and if they're being overspent, they should go up. That's how
Right.
we do this. And you can't have it both, you can't have it one way and not both ways.
Right.
You gotta have it both ways.
All right, so we'll move on to page 66, reference number 1496 to 1518.
Same thing with going with reference line 1501, miscellaneous expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like we've consistently been over our budget on that for our actuals. I didn't know what.
That's
what,
other student support.
This was more COVID, making sure that if we spent money for miscellaneous expenses during COVID, that it went to got put in the appropriate line, miscellaneous. I mean, I didn't run a budget detail on that, but that's your graduation type line. So that we did more, we're trying to compensate for kids not having proms and all that stuff.
So that would have been the actual for 2021, but the 2 years previous to that, or?
No, because if anything, it might be shy a little bit, but the last 2 years are more or less an anomaly because we tried to do things because kids didn't have proms, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, so.
Does
we typically
graduation,
what?
does graduation
didn't-
fall under this line?
Yes.
So now that we're going to the baseball stadium,
Which was actually a cost savings.
yeah, I would say, so
Yeah.
it should be less, not higher.
It should be less, not higher.
But when
Are we sticking with
if
that?
it were not for the spectacular fireworks that we did, then that made it a push. So the actual,
With the fireworks,
was a push.
it's still about even or
So
a
it was
little
even,
less.
yeah.
Or a little less.
yeah.
But so the other expenses, the 40,299, we would need to run a budget detail, but that was likely.
My guess
other-
is that, I know the school covered the classes, because they had lost a year and a half of fundraisers.
Yeah.
The school covered for the class of
Oh,
2021.
we also-
all of the prom expenses, including the
Yep.
tent, which was.
So the tent was
tent
very
was in there.
expensive. So
Yeah.
we did pay for that, and that allowed us to not have the ticket prices for kids increase.
Yeah, that
So
was a
we
biggie.
ate that
Yeah,
piece.
we picked up some of that prom expense to try to, so the kids, I think it was like $25 or something to go to prom or something
Yeah,
like that.
and I mean, the tent was probably the majority of that, 40,000
Oh, that tent was outrageous, and to call it a tent is really unfair. I mean, it was really kind of an outdoor, elegant structure. Yeah, thank you.
But this is one of those situations where we want to keep it level funded till we get another year of
Yes.
realization.
Because the 40 should be this, it should be an anomaly.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't expect that you'll see the actuals this year looking anywhere close to that.
Okay.
Hence the no increase in the line.
So are we thinking of not doing St. A's anymore and sticking with Fisher Cat? Because I know that was cheaper.
I think, well, I don't know if we're ready to,
Make
we
a
would certainly
decision.
want to talk to high school administration about that. I think we all really like the ballpark. I think it's a really nice venue for graduation. I love that we don't have any restrictions on tickets. The only thing that you deal with there is you deal with the weather.
Right.
And you deal with when they have a home stretch, as we found this past year. You may recall, I don't remember what the exact dates were, but our regular graduation date and the rain date were like
Far.
14 or 15 days apart
Yeah.
because of
Oh,
there was a home stand for the Fisher Cats baseball team that
Right.
we had to contend with. So
Right.
that's the challenge there, is the weather and then obviously the schedule. But I don't know, I really like graduation there. I think they do a nice job.
They do.
I'm a fan of the fireworks. I think it's a nice family event.
I love fireworks.
I love fireworks too.
All right, so is everybody good on page 66?
Wait till next year.
So 67,
Something special.
reference 1519 to 1541. We're just about done with the high school.
So Scott, I would point out, one of the things that I asked was about number 2 heating oil here at the
Yeah.
high school, and you'll see line 1530.
Yeah, I didn't budget for that.
We didn't budget for it, but we do buy oil, so you can see there that there's nothing budgeted, but there is money spent. And the reason for that is we have the ability here, we have 4 boilers here at the high school, and they are dual fuel. So we can flip back and forth between propane and number 2 heating oil. And historically, this high school has heated much better during very cold times, burning oil.
The reason why I didn't, is I remember looking at it, was over the summer, we have these vaporizer units, and we knew one of them had issues, and then the other one failed at inspection. So we had to replace these vaporizer units, and that was one of the reasons why we had to switch to oil, was because the vaporizers, it was like almost freezing the lines as the propane would then enter the building. So my thought, and I could be wrong, and hopefully I'm right here, that with the vaporizer units now being fully functional, we'll have less freezing of those lines. We won't really be using hardly any oil. So but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and we'll have to suck it up somewhere else. But I didn't budget for it. And if I'm wrong, then next year I'll budget for it.
We don't want to budget at all, nothing?
I'm not going to budget for it.
Okay.
I'm going to take our chances here, like Encore Casino. We're going to do it. We'll figure it out.
Somebody doesn't believe in Bernoulli's equation over there.
What?
What?
What equation?
Bernoulli's equation?
Does that have to do with what?
You talk about vaporization.
Oh.
When you take something and vaporize it, usually the lines go cold. So if, like, you take a CO2 bottle and start
Yeah.
opening it up, it goes cold.
Yeah.
That's Bernoulli's equation.
Yeah.
It's based on that.
Okay.
Everybody
Okay.
knows that,
That's
Scott.
Yeah,
Everybody knows.
I thought that was a sauce that you put on egg.
That's Bernays.
Okay.
Slightly different.
A little bit.
Pressure in forms of energy.
Exactly.
Thank you,
Physics.
Caleb.
It's all physics.
All
Caleb, what are you doing Thursday?
All physics.
I'm welding.
You're welding? All right.
I did the adult ed program.
All right.
Just to stick on this page for a moment, for the
Sure.
GHS repairs, I'm looking at the notes line. And again, the notes are on page 84, starting on 2,331. I'm looking at these itemized replacements, and is there anything that's going to be knocked out by a potential CIP or ESSER grant fund, or something where we're not gonna spend
For repairs?
$3,000 on glass replacement?
For repairs?
Because of
No, hardly,
the CIP.
very unlikely. And here's the reason why I say that, is these are our best guesstimates as to what we believe our repairs will be based upon historicals. But you just don't know until it comes along. And so if I knew that we were, let's say, replacing our interior set of bleachers, then bleacher repairs might not make sense. But it seems like there's always a situation that we put these bleachers back and there's a ball stuck underneath it, or somebody does something wrong and it needs to get, it gets tweaked and somebody has to come fix it. It just seems to happen. So painting projects we're always doing. Glass replacement, something is, somebody, you're playing softball and foul ball hits the glass on where the food service folks are, boom, there you go, there's 500.
But Scott, to Jared's question, we don't have any repair type activity in the mini CIP, the CIP.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we are, as you know, we're talking about replacing windows throughout the district, so, but it's not gonna put a dent into, I don't think it would do anything here in terms of, say, glass repairs or anything. Because we would have it at other schools. I mean, these are really more intended for, God forbid somebody vandalizes something, accidental breakage where, it's a baseball or, somebody's, who knows? I doubt it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so last page, 68, reference number 1542 to 1556, finishes up the high school.
We should all pause for a moment and look at line 1553. That is the end of the 20-year bond on the high school expansion and renovation.
Moment of silence.
Yep. That's what that is.
Go ahead, Ellen.
That raises the question. I don't know where we left off as a board, but the idea of a warrant article to create, I don't know if it would still be called a CRF, but a fund that would go toward building of a new school at some point. We don't know, we know we're gonna have to do something, okay, with our elementary schools at some point. And the idea has been, can we put a good portion of these funds toward an account that would help us build however much we can toward that project whenever it happens. Because we know it's gonna be tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
And if we can, as a community, agree to start putting funds away for it to help ourselves. I know there's no state aid, I understand that, but at some point, we do need to do something. And I don't know when that will be, but.
There's some state aid for building aid, there's just not very much.
Just not much.
It's a very limited pool.
Right.
And you have to go through an approval process before you even present something
Right.
to your voters, which is counterintuitive to many of us. At this point, if I could just give a suggestion.
Yeah, are we done with the high school?
Yeah, I was
before
gonna say,
we-
you need to decide if you're done with the budget.
Right, before we start talking
Yes.
warrant articles.
Yes.
So, was there anything from last week that we were looking for information from? You gave us everything, right, Scott?
Yeah, it was,
Does anybody have any questions on the budget? Because Jared is presenting this budget Thursday to the budget committee.
We are.
Yes, we are.
we already decided Caleb is doing it. You're taking welding.
So if everybody's good with this budget, then you need a motion, right?
We would ask for a motion to,
I just have to calculate the number.
okay, so
If you
Scott,
could- if you could
will
give
figure
me
out his number.
A few minutes.
Are we also gonna go through the food services budget as a separate item?
Scott, food services?
You can feel free to do that while I calculate the number. Want to do that?
Yeah. I think the one difficulty of the food services is it's been so non-consistent as a. Yes, there's
Different
The smaller
packets.
ones, the smaller packets.
It's a much smaller package, and it says Goffstown
Little
Food
ones?
Service, Fund 21.
You have two small ones?
He's calculating.
It's only got a couple of pages.
All right.
I mean, I'm,
I can let you use mine with notes, just so you have something
I might have
to
some
look
in this
at.
box here, but I,
That's all right, I'll look at my actual, this one just has the notes. But you guys
We can share them.
All right, so start with page 1. Dan, Terry, Janelle, do you have that packet for food service?
I've got two.
Not that I know of. Where would I have had it?
With your regular budget stuff, Dan.
Fund
In-
21?
In your yellow packet thing
I
folder.
didn't get paper. I did not get a budget book this year.
Oh,
I have it.
You have it,
Did
Terry?
you have it electronically? Did you send it electronically to me?
Do we?
Mr. Gross?
just give me 1 second,
Hang on, Dan, we're checking.
He's calculating.
which I'm done with, but hold on.
Don't screw the number up.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, this is the. Hold on. You want the food service budget.
Right,
So while Scott
just
is
send to
sending that to
Dan.
Dan,
yep.
so just in general, food service, Fund 21, this is an enterprise fund, so they only spend what they take in revenue. Obviously, food services has been greatly impacted financially. The requirements to no longer be eligible for free and reduced has had a lot of complications that we've talked about. They have done Herculean things, nothing short of Herculean in my opinion. I think our food service director is remarkable, and her team is working really hard with a lot of challenges as we continue to have issues with procuring food. There are supply chain issues. I had shared with the board last month, so in the month of September, we were pre-buying in January, which is something we've never really gone out that far before, but just struggles with commodity, changes in menus, changes in purchasing. There just have been a lot of challenges. So, Scott, you want to walk through this? Or you want me to keep going?
Did you send it to Dan?
I did.
Yeah, I have it. Thank you.
Perfect, Dan,
The,
thank you.
Let me just get to it.
My big question is 23, what is non-capital software?
So that's their Meal
Page
Magic
1.
program.
Which won't
So
be Meal
there's-
Magic. So they need, it's called a point of sale system, so
POS.
when you go to any type of restaurant or food service establishment, they use a point of sale system. And with that, when you ring somebody up, typically, it's a very robust program where you can kind of calculate your labor units, your everything, all your materials, so you can run better reports. You also know how many kids are buying certain things on which days, so you use it for both inventory. It's a
So
very
this is a new program?
correct.
But
So
so even though that was a new increase of 15,000, Ellen, on the next page, reference number 28, there's a reduction of 6,125.
Thank you.
It was moved from, that amount of 6,125, it says it was moved to
Okay.
offset that some of that 1,500, or 15,000.
So contained within this food service budget is, because they're part of the GESS in the default or base column, anything that was contractually approved by the voters is in that column. You'll also note, and I think it was Selectman Georgiantis who made a note, that on one of the PowerPoint slides, it didn't account for USDA commodities. So we are getting more from the federal government in terms of food and commodities that we're able to use, and that was omitted in that particular slide. But Megan did note that she does expect to see food and commodity increases next year. We're already starting to see that. We're having supply issues like everybody else. And the big thing here, and I'll let you know this now because it's we're gonna have to deal with it, is we have a pretty major problem at Mountain View with our steamer and our steam kettle. which is more than likely going to need a replacement at a very high amount of money, and it's gonna have to come out of the food service fund, their balance. So we could be talking like, we're getting estimates, but don't be shocked if this is a $25,000 to $35,000 bill. What?
We have a fund balance.
We have a
for
fund
food.
balance of over
Yes.
130,000 for food service. It's
For
an
some reason, I
enterprise
thought
fund.
we.
Yeah, so
before
we,
had-
that 130,000 is typically used for new equipment
Yeah.
and replacement equipment. So, all of these commercial pieces of equipment are extremely expensive. So the steam table is 20 grand.
Yeah, this one's it's a kettle and
It's
a
not
and a
surprising.
steamer.
So when we've had to replace other pieces of equipment, they are very expensive, and it's all commercial.
And they're all, like, in that building, everything is original to when it was built.
It's over 30.
So, do we need anything in our USDA commodities line? Because it's currently NA. There's nothing there. Do we need $1 there?
No, because it doesn't,
Because you don't get money, you get product.
correct.
But to Jared's point, do we need to have $1 in there in order to receive?
It's not needed simply because it's not part of the.
There's no
MS
expense.
What? There
There's
is,
no
right, there is no
expense.
expense in that, on the food service, it's just one line on the MS forms, so you don't have to worry
But
about
it
it.
does say 25,000.
I understand. We put $1 in lines that are required by law, and it's the MS 27, I believe, is the form, that's where you have to have dollars in lines, like regular ed, special ed, fund transfers, food service. So we do have a food service line, and even though that your budget has, a couple of hundred lines here, it's all considered one for the state forms, so.
So let me rephrase, because I'm looking at other schools, and there is money in the US commodities line, but for some reason, for Bartlett, we don't have anything there.
That I would not know.
So I look up.
Bartlett has a different status for our percentages of free and reduced.
Okay.
So again, all of this is wacky because of COVID, but before the pandemic, that was the only school that we had hit a threshold of eligibility to allow for healthy fruits and vegetables and program for kids, that we had a high enough participation rate qualifying for free and reduced that the whole school qualified for healthy snacks, healthy vegetables. So I just share that because that one school in particular has our highest percentage of free and reduced lunch kits.
And it's not just Bartlett missing that, Maple also.
Yeah,
It's not at
too.
Maple, but it's at the middle school for
the high school.
$25,000. In high school, I haven't checked yet.
Yeah,
For
45,000.
some reason, it's not at the elementary schools, but the US commodities, there is a number in there for the DePaul
Right.
underneath the middle and high school, it seems like.
Would
Right.
it have to do with the fact that the food is not on that location? Don't we deliver food to those?
We
do.
do. We satellite food out, so is it possible that she's taking it all into the high school?
the middle
And if it's all one line, then we wouldn't have to break it out by location. So
Right.
everything else on the DOE 25, which is that state report that leads to the MS 25, which is what sets our tax rates, we have to identify what level every expense is, elementary, middle, high school. Food service all being one, maybe we're not breaking it out because we don't need to.
Or like Retta said, it's being prepared.
It's being out, it's
At the
being.
middle.
I don't,
High
that
school.
that is not it. I
No?
think it just has something to do with being unique to the middle and high school.
Okay.
Because even though we're preparing foods, and if you look at the past years where we weren't doing that, it wasn't in there. I'd have to ask
Okay.
Megan why that's the case, I don't know.
All right. So does anybody have any other questions on the food service before we move on? No? All right. All right, Scott, do you have your numbers?
Yeah, I just want to verify them for a quick second, so.
Okay.
There's pizza over there, basically.
Yes, Scott brought pizza.
Heather?
Yes.
We're done with this, that's when I'll leave for another.
Well, don't you have to leave now, don't you?
It'll take me a few minutes to get there, and
Okay.
I'll just wait for this to finish.
45,
All right, thank you.
382,
Because we do have a
646.
quorum if you leave.
Yeah.
Made sure of that.
Okay. So, So the numbers I want to give you, and I know that you bring forward a number which is the total appropriation to the budget committee, but I wanted just to give you a couple of numbers first. So your default number didn't change. I shouldn't say that, it changed slightly because we made that one little change to, we did make changes to the SAU, et cetera.
Okay, so what's the number?
So the
what's-
default number went, so the previous default number was 45,286,193,
Yeah, it's on our green paper.
right,
You
on
guys
that green
have it.
paper. And then it's going to 45,382,646.
Okay,
And then your new spending was 304,144. And we made one change there, it's going up to 306,648.
306,648.
Correct. So, that being the case, on, when we presented this budget, it was for a total, again, general fund only, of 45,590,337. And with the changes that were made over the last couple of nights, it's going to 45,689,294. And that represents an increase of 98,957.
Select board is probably at the,
Are they meeting here, Ellen?
Who?
the select board.
No, at the.
At the town hall. So select board's at the town hall. Okay.
So that being the case, and Dan, hopefully you can hear me, the proposed budget that, based upon the actions that were taken the last couple of nights, I'm gonna give you three numbers. 45,689,294 is your general fund, and that's base and new. The food service is $1,245,023. That hasn't changed. And then your special revenue budget is $2 million. That hasn't changed. So you would be voting to move to the budget committee a proposed budget of $48,934,317.
48 million, right? Still?
48.
Yep,
934,
317.
317.
Perfect.
You want to move that, Joe?
No, you got it.
Okay, I'll move it. Do I need to say the number? Okay.
All right, so Ellen makes a motion to move the 48 million.
934,
Yep,
317.
317. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Dan, did you have something to say?
No, just technically, what we're doing is we're taking this amount of money and we're adopting it as our number for the budget committee's consideration.
Correct. Thank you, Dan. All right, any other questions, discussion? I'll do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. Motion passed. Thank you. All right, Ellen, thank you. So next Monday, Ellen, we have a regular school board meeting at 7.
Back to 7.
Back to 7.
They keep coming at me.
I know.
Good luck. Good luck, Ellen.
Yeah.
Have a good
Bye,
week.
Ellen.
Tonight should be fun.
All right, so,
Chair.
yes, go ahead, Joe.
I'm going to propose a resolution, and I need this to maintain my ethics certification as a project management professional. When the conversation comes up at the budget committee to look at our stipends and to make changes, by definition, to keep my ethics, I have to recuse myself because that is money going into my pocket. The only way around this is if I get a resolution from this board to act in order to maintain this money or this stipend in our budget. So I'd like to ask or make a resolution for the school board representative to the budget committee to act to maintain our school board stipends as presented to them. And again, that is so that I can maintain my ethics certification.
Okay. So by that you need,
Actually,
go ahead, Dan.
if I may, Heather?
Sure, go ahead.
We can actually make it a little further. We can say, we authorize the budget committee representative, whomever it may be, for that particular evening, to represent the board in its entirety of the budget sent by the board. Would that, or do you want something even more specific, including and specifically for the school board stipends?
We have to mention the school board stipends. I did talk to my, my ethics
Yep.
board about this. We have to specifically mention that line
The school
in there.
board
Right.
stipends. Okay.
That's why I kind of finished it that way. But I want to do it more than just that. I don't want to get recused out of anything. I
No.
want to make it plain and simple that, yeah, you're there to represent what the board's actions are. And in this case, it happened to be 9-0, so
Yeah,
it wasn't just a majority, it was unanimous.
Right.
The bylaws of the town says that I can vote on, because of
Yeah.
the representative on the budget committee, I can vote for anything, but from an ethics standpoint, that was the only one that caused the problem.
Okay.
Sure.
So I'd like a
No problem.
resolution
So
for
as a
that.
resolution, you mean a motion?
A motion, to yeah, so
As a
this
resolution.
isn't an action, this is a resolution that
Okay.
basically protects me
Okay. So
from
do you-
maintaining my certification.
So you want someone else to say it?
No, I can make
Oh, yeah.
make the motion
Yep.
to pass the resolution as previously described.
Did you get all that, Denise? Okay. So do I have a second?
Second.
By
I
Jin- Okay. I got Ginny, Dan. All right, any other questions?
Okay,
Thanks, Dan. Oh, yes, go ahead, Amanda.
because
There was some discussion last time about a possible increase for the stipend, and personally, as someone who's not on the board, seeing how hard everyone is, I think that that's worthy of a discussion. Just putting it out there before the
I welcome you to come to the public comment on Thursday to put that out there.
Yeah, no one, yeah, thank you, Amanda. I appreciate you
very
saying
nice of you.
that. Scott mentioned that, that we haven't had a stipend raise in quite a few years, but nobody ever asks for it, so, maybe next year. So, but I thank you
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate you saying that. We all do. All right,
Yes,
I'll
sir. Thank
do
you.
roll call. Retta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. So motion passed.
Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. So now, what do we want to do about warrant articles? Discuss that November 1st?
Yeah, that would be
or-
up to the board. I
'cause
think
I
at
know
this
Ellen
point,
had questions.
I think Ellen is going to want to participate in the discussion about warrant articles.
Yeah.
But at this point, the massive lift was getting the budget ready for the budget committee to start reviewing. Certainly, Mr. Talbot can represent that there will be additional warrant articles that the board has maybe not quite completed.
And that's good, that's all right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
because we can present this, and then as other money warrant articles come up, we can present that at the tail end of the budget season.
Right, so typically, if we have a successful negotiations with GEA, we would go to them and do a presentation on the teacher contract. So we'll have the teacher contract. We certainly will have the area agreement warrant article. That'll be forthcoming, so we'll want to give some information about that.
That doesn't go to the budget committee, though. We can let them know that's going to be there, but they don't vote on that, because that's not an expense.
Yeah.
They don't.
That's fascinating because, well, be that as it may, it's a rather large, it's more than 50% of the New Boston School District's budget. But we'll also have the capital reserve fund deposit. And Scott, we had talked about the warrant article to increase the 2.5% contingency fund to 5%, which is a new change in the law last year.
Year before last, we didn't put it on the ballot last year.
We didn't do it last
could've,
year.
but we didn't.
So we'll have a couple
That's
of
quite a
others
bit.
as well. And we do have 2 non-publics for this evening.
Right. Well, before we so we're set with budget for now. we had new business about the public hearing.
Yeah, I
that
just
we can't
wanted-
do now November 1st.
Yeah, so I just wanted to put this on the board's radar, and then for me to be able to share with the public that we will be holding a public hearing to receive input on the area agreement with New Boston, and that has been tentatively scheduled for Monday, November 15th at 7 p.m. As a public hearing, there are timing requirements for notification to the newspaper, for posting, et cetera, and we will be having that hearing on that evening. New Boston will do their public hearing prior. So the public hearing in New Boston will happen first.
And that's explaining what the area agreement is,
Yeah,
the
so just-
PowerPoint that you guys are
Yeah,
doing.
so we're going to put together a presentation that goes through what is the area agreement, what are the essential elements of it, what are the proposed changes, and if you don't know, this is an agreement that dates back to 1971 in between these two communities. So this is a 5-decade-old agreement that has served multiple generations of New Boston and Goffstown kids well. So we are in full support of the proposed changes that the board is negotiating, as well as a new 10-year term. So we'll provide more information at the public hearing on the 15th.
Okay. All right, so moving on, other business that may legally come before the meeting? No? All right, so like Brian said, we do have 2 non-public for tonight. So which one do you want to go in first, C or A?
Why don't we go under C first?
Okay. So I'll need a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91-A32C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant.
So moved.
By Shane, do I have a second?
Seconded.
By Jared, and I will do roll call. Greta?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Janelle?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
And Heather, yes. So we are in non-public. We'll take a few minutes to let GTV